We've been watching the reaction to President Trump's State of the Union address last night, in which the president called out, quote, radical lefters in his State of the Union address, targeting the Democrats' health care plans as well. Take a look.
But as we work to improve Americans' health care, there are those who want to take away your health care, take away your doctor, and abolish private insurance entirely. 132 lawmakers in this room have endorsed legislation to impose a socialist takeover of our health care system, wiping out the private health insurance plans of 180 million very happy Americans. To those watching at home tonight, I want you to know we will never let socialism destroy American health care.
All right, so joining us now from Washington, D.C. is Stephen Pavlick. He's head of policy at Renaissance Macro Research and the former deputy assistant secretary at the Treasury Department. And Stephen, President Trump didn't stand back on his health care agenda. I want to start with your reaction to that. We heard a lot of cheers and jeers out there, but Democrats very loudly opposing the points he was making. What do you make of that?
Well, I think if you're President Trump, you have to look at the polls and realize that he feels a little vulnerable, I think, on health care, health insurance, and drug prices. And I think he used his opportunity last night to try to score some political points by making a contrast between what he's looking to do and Republicans are looking to do, and looking to label Democrats as socialists. I think you look at what happened with Warren and her Medicare for All proposal by trying to paint that broad brush on everybody, particularly now that Bernie Sanders has, performed better maybe than expected, looking like he's in a strong position to be able to try to cast that on the Democratic Party as a whole may benefit him and Republicans.
Yeah, Nan, I'd be curious to get your take as well on this, too, because of your medical background. But also, we heard it was specifically H.R. 3 chants that caught my attention when President Trump was talking about drug prices and the push there, get a bill on my desk and I'll sign it. Right. When one is held up right now in the Senate after passing the House that would kind of do that. So interesting to see that he's kind of caught in that awkward position here where he's trying to make that case, but also what has he done?
Absolutely. And because of the distinct differences between the House majority and the Senate majority, it's going to be very difficult to square that circle. Even though a lot of Republicans would like, people like Charles Grassley, Chuck Grassley in Iowa, who's been instrumental in these issues, is, I think, more inclined to go toward a price control direction. But the problem is that when you do that kind of thing, it really can hurt industry, can hurt innovation. There are better ways for us to approach the issue of drug pricing, but all of them are complicated because we have this government-private hybrid, the third-party payer mechanism that makes it difficult to extract all the different elements without maybe harming farm innovation, without maybe harming access. I think one thing we can all agree on is that pharmacy benefit managers, the middlemen, are probably going to be the first to feel the sting maybe of additional regulation or restrictions. I wonder what Stephen is. Stephen, I don't know.
Yeah, he's still here. Yeah, I mean,
Stephen, what do you think about that? Do you think PBMs might be the juiciest target for some sort of new regulatory intervention?
Well, I think they're certainly very vulnerable. I mean, in terms of what their value is to the chain here, it's by far, I think they have the worst argument. I mean, drug makers need to have profits in order to reinvest them for research and development. Health insurers probably have the best political argument, saying if you're going to increase the burden on us, we'll just go ahead and raise the rates for those that we cover, and no politician wants that. So in terms of the pharmacy benefit managers, I agree that they're probably vulnerable to some targets. I think with respect to President Trump, he's probably feeling some pressure here to maybe take some executive action. He rolled out a drug importation plan in December. There's talks of maybe moving forward with this international pricing index. I think as he feels, again, vulnerable on the issue of drug pricing, he knows that Democrats were able to make some gains in the House in 2018 on health care and drug pricing in particular. I think he wants to show people that he's taking action to try to reduce it, and maybe he'll try to persuade some reluctant Republicans to maybe get behind some of the measures in the Grassley bill, although I still think the idea of placing caps on price increases, it gets a little too close to price control, and that still might be anathema to many Senate Republicans.
No, I think you're right to point out that he was feeling a little bit vulnerable in that direction. I think that came through in the fact that he mostly tried to make the attention about the economy in most of his speech last night, and that's not surprising considering that's something he's done for a while now, but he touted strong jobs numbers and a revived economy last night. Take a listen to what he had to say.
From the instant I took office, I moved rapidly to revive the U.S. economy, slashing a record number of job-killing regulations, enacting historic and record-setting tax cuts, and fighting for fair and reciprocal trade agreements. Since my election, we have created 7 million new jobs, 5 million more than government experts projected during the previous administration.
So there you go. I mean, overall, he was touting a very strong economy, and no surprise why he would want to do that, because that's what we've seen so far. And at the end of it, I mean, he got kind of a childish reaction, I think some people might classify it as, with Nancy Pelosi ripping up his speech. So overall, what would you grade the State of the Union address?
Well, I think for Trump, in terms of it being a political messaging opportunity in an election year, I'd probably give him an A. I think in terms of trying to give his base things to be excited about, he mentioned many pro-life initiatives, pro-gun, strong borders and enforcements, things that, again, that appeal to his base. I think you're right to point out that his re-election effort focuses very strongly on the economy, something that's looking to appeal beyond his base, and there's a lot of polling out there to support that. I think he even went into the details showing that if you look at the unemployment numbers, they're improving for Black Americans, Asian Americans, and women. And I think that's all part of Trump's re-election message. So I think, you saw some him even reaching out to on positions that are probably more appealing to Democrats, offering to preserve Social Security, offering to protect those with pre-existing conditions. So I think he was very strategic in terms of hitting all not only his base, but also trying to make inroads there with those outside his base. Yep. He's going to need to be reelected.
Yeah, we heard a lot of that. Now it's just a question of maybe perhaps seeing some of those policy things getting done to back up some of the language that we heard as well there. But also we'll have to watch and see what happens. Perhaps the biggest thing that he'll be watching, the wrapping up of the impeachment inquiry and the Senate vote coming later today. But Stephen Pavlick, thank you so much for joining us and breaking that down. Appreciate it.